Hello everyone, welcome to video 10, Coding and Quantification. I have used my colleague Dr. Wicks's slides. I want to thank her for her contribution. The content of this video, we will look at what is coding, the importance of coding, resources needed for coding, and how to do the coding, and then some assumptions and helpful tips. So why is coding important and what is coding? Matching the food items with the correct food items in the condensed food composition tables are important. So basically with coding, you take your food item that you have identified from your participant and recorded it on your 24-hour recall or your QFQ, and you will go and look in the condensed food composition tables which code it is, and you will record that code next to that food item so that they match. So you get the best code to match the food item from the questionnaire that you've completed. So you obtain nutritional composition of the diet from the food codes that is in the food composition tables. And the aim is then to report on the nutritional composition as accurate as possible. So you know that some of the estimates that you are doing with your quantification during your field work, it's an estimate. So we're trying our best to get the best estimate and then to get to an as accurate as possible answer on the nutritional composition of the diet. So the resources that we need for coding, it's the MRC's condensed food composition tables, it's the blue book, and then the MRC's food quantities manual, it is the green book. These days, the food quantities manual also contains the new food codes. So if you are not looking for your nutritional value, and you're only coding, you can use the food quantities manual. But when you are going to do some assumptions, you will need your food composition table to be able to find replacements for items that might not be in the food composition table. So important to keep record of is the combined dishes, any comparisons between foods that are not in the food composition tables and then the food that is there. A scale in case you need to weigh the foods, in case it's not in the food quantities manual and you need to weigh it yourself. And then just to keep an assumption list with the NDIS, all the coders will have the same assumption list so that we make the same assumptions across the country. There will be some provincial assumptions as well. So we will look at that and keep that in mind when we are coding. Good. So now how do you code? So you take your diet, your 24-hour recall, your QFQ, that specific questionnaire you worked on, and you code according to the new codes in the food composition tables and the food quantities manual. So you have those two resources available, and then remember it's important to know what the preparation methods are, foods that were added, what are the combined dishes, what are the recipes for these dishes, do we need to make any assumptions for these dishes, foods that are not available, where are the comparisons, you need the comparisons for that, and then also you need the weight, and from your food quantities manual, the assumptions, or you will have to weigh it yourself. So you need to choose the most appropriate food item from the condensed food composition tables. You may have difficulties, we have mentioned combined dishes, so that you might have difficulties with these. The combined dishes would be a stew or a pasta where you have got added a variety of ingredients added. You could have mixed vegetables that has been combined, vegetarian dishes that have been combined. So these are the dishes that can be a bit more problematic because it's difficult to determine the exact amounts that are that are in these dishes, and you have to sometimes make use of ratios to get to the combination of these different ingredients in these dishes. New products are also difficult. The food composition tables are not kept up to date as fast as what the new products come out. New products come out on a weekly basis sometimes, and you know, products also leave the market, so it can be a bit of a difficulty deciding on which codes to use for new products. And then food items that are not included in the food composition tables, there are some items that are not there, and it can also be food items that are imported. That might also be a problem. And then the weight of food items, especially food items, say from fast food vendors that are not our, you know, our main vendors, that are the cafe on the corner, or smaller shops that sell takeaway foods, fast foods, and you have to go and purchase those foods, take it apart, and then also weigh them. I can remember when we started the African Predict, we had to go to our cafeteria at the university, as many of the participants consumed food there, and we had to take apart and weigh a lot of the fast food that they were selling there. So the combined dishes, you need to find out if they're commercial or homemade. You, as you've done the interview for the 24-hour recalls, you would have seen on your questionnaire, you will have to add a brand. So if it's homemade, at least you can indicate it's homemade. And if it's commercial, is it Woolworths? Is it, you know, is whatever brand? Is it Dr. Uker? Is it, I don't have those two in my mind at the moment, but what commercial brands are available, and then you add that just to the commercial, to the brands column on your 24-hour recall, as well as on your QFFQ, where you identify, or you add on the extra column that you can add if it was homemade or if it was commercial. So the nutrient composition available in the condensed food composition tables, there's a range of combined dishes in there. So standard recipes were used, and recipes is available at the back of each food chapter. So at the back of your, for instance, your starches, you'll have a lasagna or a macaroni and cheese. You'll have a recipe available there, and the code for each recipe is available, or each ingredient can be individually coded. You will also see, if you look at the recipes at the back of the chapter, that each ingredient also has its own code. So you can make use of that as well. And then it's also important to understand the abbreviations of the food composition tables. You will find, let's look at the following slide. So you will find the following abbreviations in your food composition tables. And in the beginning, the first pages of the food composition tables contains the abbreviations. So it's important to also go through the whole, you know, from the start of your food composition tables, to understand what is in the tables, what is available, where does it come from. So it's very important to not just skip everything and go to the tables and the nutritional analysis and values that are available, but to also read what is the data about and where does it come from, as I've previously mentioned. So these are the abbreviations that you should know. So when you get to the combined dishes, you must pay attention to additional information, such as the preparation methods, what ingredients were added, and did fortification take place, or if you used maize, was it fortified? So remember, these are also the points on your questionnaires that you also have to remember. So it's the same with the combined dishes. And then individual coding might be necessary for these combined dishes. So you'll have to take the food items apart, get the approximate weight of each ingredient, or at least a ratio. Was it half beans and half samp, if we think of samp and beans? And for instance, if they added spinach or pumpkin, what percentage was pumpkin? Yeah, so was it 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, or was it half pumpkin and a quarter beans and a quarter samp? So it's important you can write down the recipe as such, and then indicate what the ratio or what the ratio of each ingredient was. So then the additional information, such as milk, was it low fat, full cream, was it hard margarine, or was it polyunsaturated margarine, also need to be added. And then those items would be coded individually. And assumptions may also be necessary to do the combined dishes. So it may be that you are not quite aware of the specific milk that was used if you are not the cook or the one that prepares the food in the house. So if they don't know what milk was used, you'll have to make an assumption for that. So it's important that the dietary recall data is as complete as possible. So you'll see during the training, we indicate that collect as much data as possible. So you'll also see with your 24-hour recall, all of those columns that needs to be completed. That is also there specifically for the data that we need. And you should please not leave anything out or empty. Don't leave empty columns. Okay, so the combined dishes from the 24-hour recall, as I've indicated, the information must be as detailed as possible. So list all the ingredients that was in that specific dish, or you can use the recipes from the food composition tables. These recipes as a standard recipe that has been used, and if the person cannot identify after a lot of probing exactly what the combined dish consists of, you might have to go to the combined dishes or the recipes that are available in the food composition tables. Or if it is, for example, like a pizza, you will have to list each ingredient. So you'll have your pizza base, and then you will have your salami, your tomatoes, your olives that you would list underneath each other. And it's important to try and get the weight for each of the items. What we did in some of the studies, we actually had to purchase the pizzas, and we determined, what was the average amount or the average weight for a specific ingredient on the pizza. So this is also important to remember. And it's also important to have good knowledge of food products that are available. This is very important so that you know what is available in the shops, even if it's something that you don't usually purchase, or you know you won't be able to afford it, or it's something you don't like. As someone working in the field of nutrition, doesn't matter where you are working, it is very important to make sure that you have a good knowledge of the food products, and you can look at the nutritional labels for more information. And some of us have a nutrition background, so make use of the knowledge you gained from your studies or your previous experience. So look at things like added sugar versus sugar-free versus artificially sweetened these days. I think these are the topics that are quite prevalent on the market, especially with the artificially sweetened beverages, yogurts. Yeah, there's a lot of these beverages and foods available these days. So when you do your shopping, take about 10 or 15 minutes extra just to glance at what is available in the shops, and make sure that you take cognizance, or you see the new things that are available and pick them up and look at them and what are they, and why. If they say it's better, why is it better? So have a look at products in the shops. And then what do you do with food products that are not available in the food composition tables? This is where you do a comparison between what is available in the market and what is the types of foods that are comparable with what is available in the food composition tables. So this is now an old example, because Future Life is now in the updated food composition tables. But this is actually just a very good example on how we coded, what code we used for Future Life before it was in the food composition table. So I'm not sure if you can see, but that is in red circled there. Those are the 3 pronutrients that is available in the food composition tables. And if you look at your macronutrients, so if you look at energy, protein, carbohydrates, and your fats, you then compare between the 3, you take the 3 pronutrients that were circled in the previous slide, and you compare their macronutrients with the Future Life original macronutrients. And as you can see, that the ProNutro high energy, if you look at energy, it's 102% compared to what the Future Life original is. ProNutro Great Start is 92, and ProNutro Whole Wheat is 99. Then you go to the protein and you see, okay, there's 105 for your protein, your high energy, the same for your Great Start, and then the same for your whole wheat. So they are all comparable and good choice for the protein in Future Life original. Then with the carbohydrate, high energy has 75%, Great Start 84%, and normal whole wheat ProNutro is 67%. Then when you compare the fat, you'll see that ProNutro high energy is 93, Great Start is only 20, and ProNutro whole wheat is 76%. So you have your ProNutro high energy that is the best comparison for your Future Life original, and you will use that code for your nutritional analysis then. But we have Future Life original and many other Future Life products in the current and the updated food composition tables. So you can just, this is just a good example of what we used to do with comparisons. So when it comes to weighing of the food items, so the food items, you as a field worker, you have now quantified it according to either the household measures that you used from your dietary kit, or if you used your picture file and there were grams in there, you quantified it as such. So you can use your food quantities manual to quantify the food. So if it has been described, for instance, the lemons here and the oranges in the middle as large, medium, and small, in the food quantities manual, you can go and look and see what is the large, medium, and small. You also have your porridges or your cereals. If you've quantified it in a 2 cups or 1 cup or half a cup, then you can look it up in the food quantities manual and you will find that a half a cup of, for instance, all bran flakes is plus minus 30 grams. And that is then how you would quantify, use the weight of the food, because in when the data gets analyzed, it only gets analyzed in grams. So everything is converted into grams. So this is why training is so important, to make sure that we do the estimation correctly or as accurate as possible, and give your participant enough time to take it in, think, and then that they give you the answer of how much they estimate that they have consumed. So the knowledge of the person that's doing the coding, you must really pay attention when the coding training comes, as this is quite, this is just a general information on coding and quantifying. So when there's no weight available, you, as previously mentioned, you get the specific food item and you weigh them plus minus 10 times, and then you record the weight. So you'll use an average for the food item. I would suggest, if it's a food item that is commonly consumed, you find that is a food item that's almost on all of your questionnaires, that item needs to be weighed and it needs to be quantified properly. You'll see in your files, in your picture files, you also have the kota or the bunny chows that has been quantified by the universities, by UWC, and that is what they did. They purchased the food and then they determined what was the weight and the content, the ingredients of that specific item, and they weighed it and they recorded it. And as previously mentioned, with the combined dishes, you will have to take them apart if there's no weights available for them. List the ingredients, list the ratios if you don't have a specific weight for that, and then the coder will be able to work from, say, 100 gram portion or 100 grams. That they can work from 100 grams and determine, what was half, what was a quarter, and so on. And then also record the weight, obviously. And then again, assumptions might be necessary. So the examples of the assumptions, we spoke about the milk. If it's a combined dish, it was lasagna, and you don't know what type of milk was in it, or the type of bread that was used in the sandwich, but that that you consumed, you know, brown bread, but was it homemade or was it store-bought? So that's also assumptions that we can make. And then the type of margarine, if you really cannot, it is difficult to determine the type of margarine if it is a sandwich that was not, can I say, prepared by the participant themselves. Then the sizes of the fruits, you know, like the small, the medium, and the large, and the cup sizes and glasses, and then the weights of, for example, if it's a heaped teaspoon or is it a level teaspoon, and then chicken might have been cooked with or without skin. Yeah, so if the participant can't remember or it's just not possible to determine how the chicken was consumed, an assumption would also have to be made there. Okay. So here's an example. You got a 24-hour recall that just indicated milk. In this study, if you find a participant that had milk or coffee at a restaurant and they don't know what type of milk it is, you must then record it as don't know, so that we know, okay, you did ask, but they don't know, and they, you know, it was in a restaurant, so that is a bit difficult for that person, because we might just send you back into the field if it looks like you forgot to ask, you know, what type of milk. As you know, if you go back if you go to your step 2 of your 24-hour recall interview, that's where you record the details and your quantities, and it might just look, okay, you did not get the milk's complete details. Apple over here, they had 1. So this is also what, you know, what is the size apple that is mostly consumed. So you will have to make an assumption here of the apple size. And then the mayonnaise over here, it was 1 tablespoon. So was it heaped? Was it level? Then we have to decide, do we usually use, is it usually heaped with mayonnaise or is it usually level? So how are we going to do that? And then the tomato and the chips over here, just also what type of chip could it have been? Is it fries, or was that a whole packet of samba chips that was consumed? So okay, from here you can assume that it was actually French fries because it's a burger. So you can say, okay, burger and chips. So that is what is done there. And also you can also look at with the tomato, because there's 1 slice. Is it a thick or a thin slice? So there's also an assumption to be made. What type of slice is always on a burger? Okay, so we can move on to the next one. And so yes, like it will sometimes be necessary because of your participant and the data that they can give you. And then it must be based on the study population, so have a good knowledge of the dietary habits in the area. So if you realize there is a problem with a specific item, you will need to find out, for instance, what type of maize do they use. More often, if they can only tell you it is it's maize porridge, maize meal that they've purchased, and sometimes the vendors pre-pack or pack the foods into different or smaller sizes, but with just a see-through plastic bag with no branding on it, and you might have to go to the vendor if a lot of people in the area purchase from that vendor, just to find out, you know, what is it that you are selling to the community. Then you can record that, and then an assumption can be made that in that area that say ACE maize meal is something that's used often and that's sold by the vendor, but just repacked. And then everybody must make the same assumptions. So for the NDIS, we will have a coders group, and like I say, for certain assumptions, we can make it national, and in some instances it might be that it is only in a specific province or even in a specific area, but we will discuss this as we go along. So it's also important to keep record of all of your assumptions, and yes, so the assumptions cannot be made immediately, and you need to understand the study population. So you will start to understand the area, the EA where you are in, and then you can go and investigate where can you find the vendor that sells the specific where they usually purchase, and then you will go there and just find out what has been sold to the community. Okay, so some help tips. So read the introduction of the food composition tables. There's important information, as I've indicated in the beginning. There's a lot of information that assists you in reading the food composition tables. The same with the food quantities manual. There they also indicate on how you can quantify, how to use a dietary kit, how to use those tools to make it easier to quantify the food. And the different food chapters of the food composition tables, you can also familiarize yourself with those. What is in the starches, what is in vegetables, what is in the miscellaneous part, the soups and sauces, what is in your sugars and sweets, and yeah, fruit, vegetable, meats, and so on. And then if you can't find the food item, you can look at the alphabetical list at the back of the food composition table. If you're doing your coding and quantifying with the electronic food composition table and food quantities manual, you can open it up in Adobe, and then you can search. If you use the search function, it will search through the document and it will show you your food item. A mistake I sometimes make is that I do spell it incorrectly, so just make sure that your spelling is correct, and if it says nothing found, that you are sure of your spelling. And then also, again, have good food product knowledge, read the nutritional information labels, and use your prior knowledge on food products, or fruits and vegetables as well. And then as the field workers, you must be well trained. So again, knowledge of the food products that are available, knowledge of your study population, and then aware of the coding needs of the coder. That's why you are going to do some coding yourself, and to see if the field worker, you yourself, or your co-field worker, your peer, if they did the interview on the questionnaires in detail. So you will also do coding and also quantifying to see if you've recorded a medium apple, or if you've recorded, or how you've recorded the quantities, if that is easily translated into grams. And there's some more tips. So the coders, you should again know all of these, your food products, study population, food composition tables, and then keep records of everything, and so that there's a consistency across everyone that is doing the coding. And you should base your assumption on a specific study population. So in some instances, as I've mentioned, it might be possible to assume across the country. In other parts, it might just be specific study populations. A population living next to the ocean might not be able to be compared with someone living in a drier area. So the same assumptions might not be made for those populations. Okay. So just something from Marianne. Accurate coding is complex, but it is essential in reporting nutrient intake data as accurately as possible. And we sometimes feel like that. Get all the information you can. We'll think of a use for it later. So thank you for listening, and good luck with your coding and your quantification.